You've been watching rolling coverage of day one of the highly anticipated Madlanga Commission led by Justice Mbuyiseli Madlanga there, which officially kicked off this morning at around about 10 a.m. It's all happening in Pretoria. The commission has now adjourned until tomorrow morning. I do believe that they will start at 9:30 a.m. at the Brigitte Mabandla Justice College. That's in Pretoria. In the main, General Mkhwanazi has been affirming key claims he made in July about senior police leaders, some political heads, and disruptions to the political killings task team. To evidence lead advocate Mahlape Sello SC there, as you've seen, together with the commissioners. Well, as you know, just to recap, the commission is to investigate allegations of corruption, political interference, and criminal syndicates infiltrated in South Africa's justice system. There's a lot to unpack, and we'll do so with one of my colleagues who, together with the SABC News team, has been on the ground to get reaction on day one. And of course, we'll also speak to various analysts for that. In fact, let's go right into it and speak to legal analyst Reitumetse Benedict Phiri. Reitumetse, a very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. So in the main, General Mkhwanazi has been affirming those claims he made in July about senior police leaders and disruptions to political killings task team. What have been your key takeouts in his testimony so far, and how can you just speak to us around the commission and how it's being conducted up to date?
Afternoon, Unati, and afternoon to the viewers. I think, it's probably good to start around the commission and how it's being conducted, because early in the morning, we heard the chief evidence leader, Advocate Terimutau SC, basically setting out what the commission will be doing in accordance with its terms of reference, and how General Mkhwanazi's testimony today will effectively set the tone for the commission's work. So what we understood from that session in the morning is that what General Mkhwanazi says today will implicate some people who will then be given an opportunity to respond to some of the allegations that he will put forward, and he's expected to be very frank and candid and basically illustrate evidence, in-depth evidence where he can. And whoever is then implicated or becomes a person of interest will then be afforded an ability in the second phase of the commission to address those allegations as General Mkhwanazi would have put them while he's basically giving his testimony, and then to basically probe General Mkhwanazi's testimony and see that it's actually robust and it stands up. He will then be re-examined in the third phase of the commission. So I think that's an important understanding to sort of figure out the way that this commission is going to go. And I think by the end of it, given what we're hearing today, we'll have an ability to test how credible and the veracity of all these allegations, having then heard some of the other people that will testify. We also do understand that some of the testimony may be in camera to protect some witnesses as it's given. But to speak of sort of the key things that have coming out today, we knew that these dockets are going to play a central role because it's really, what led to General Mkhwanazi making his statements to the public in July related to this work of the political killings task team, the order or the directive that was given by the minister while the national commissioner at that time was actually on leave, and it was executed by an acting national commissioner, and then obviously General Sabia, who then made sure that those dockets or at least the work of the task team did not continue. So I think that's an important context. It is something that became central to General Sibiya's suspension as we know it now. So I expect that General Sibiya will also have to deal at length with some of the events that to the latter part of the day, General Mkhwanazi has been dealing with.
All right, Mr. Phiri, let's pause for now. I want to just bring in our reporter, SABC News senior legal journalist, Canny Maphanga, who's live for us at the Brigitte Mabandla Justice College in Pretoria. Canny, a very good afternoon to you. So let's just unpack and give us some of those highlights then. Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, the star witness of phase 1 of the commission, what have been the main highlights of his testimony so far, given that before lunch it was really foundational information coming out versus what we've been hearing now after lunch related to the task team's work, that is?
Indeed, good afternoon to you, Inati, and to the viewers. It was indeed a very slow start to the Lieutenant General's testimony before the Commission of Inquiry into these very serious allegations, which places key state institutions in our criminal justice system in collusion or alleged collusion with those organized criminal syndicates. Of course, he went through a lengthy foundation where he laid out his service to the SABC, which started in 1993 with the force and then continued rather in 1995 with the service to date. He also goes into ranks to explain how the South African Police Services enjoys their ranks and the kind of operations that each rank governs and how difficult it is to infiltrate that. Of course, he spoke about warning of a potential threat to the criminal justice system if there's no intervention, and he hoped that through his press briefing that this commission will be able to provide the significant intervention that is required by the criminal justice system in order for them to continue their work, because if these allegations are true, they not only erode public trust, Onati, but they affect the rule of law, because if you subvert these key players in the criminal justice system in South Africa, of course what you're left with in this constitutional democracy is a space without the rule of law. Following the lunch adjournment, Onati, that is where it got really interesting and we got into the meat of some of the evidence that we're going to see be laid bare before this Commission of Inquiry. He's gone into great detail about the political killings task team. We know why it was formed, especially in the KZN province, where that issue is quite prominent, not only in our constitutional democracy, but it has existed pre-democracy, and it is an issue that the Lieutenant General had quite a strong passion to resolve. Now he's gone into the successes of this particular team by securing the arrests of two particular individuals that he has named so far, that is Molefe and Matlala. These are individuals who are facing very serious charges, and the Lieutenant General has placed them at the center of this alleged organized crime syndicate. He illustrates that there's a common theme in all of these killings. He states that they're not merely just killings, but they are, crime scenes that are linked significantly to the awarding of tenders. He understood them to be connected by far and large to alleged corruption involved in these tenders. And another example that he detailed was that of the tragic murder of the Vereniging engineer, that is Aman Swat, where you saw a former detective, I think it's Michael Puletau, who was mentioned by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, and the alleged links that this particular individual has with other accused, and the common theme of tenders and the common association with this alleged criminal syndicate. Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi makes it clear before the commission that the successes or the success rates of this task team with respect to giving effect to the arrests of two key individuals to this alleged criminal syndicate that he has testified about before the commission, then led to the disbandment of the political killings task team, or at least that's what he testifies he believes to be the cause. He states that the Minister of Police, or the now suspended Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, had no right to disband the political killings task team that went far beyond his scope, according to the Lieutenant General, and that, according to him, the Minister deals with the policy aspect of the SAPS, not its operations, as multiple operations in South Africa fighting our criminal justice system. So he said that that fell outside of what he was remitted to do or allowed to do with respect to the SAPS and how it conducts its operations. And he believes there was allegedly a third hand that is associated or linked to this alleged sophisticated organized crime syndicate, which led to the disbandment of this political killings task team, which was described by Mchunu in a letter that was read out to the Commission as something which adds no value to policing in South Africa. So we expect that when we continue at 9:30 a.m. this morning, or rather tomorrow morning, that the Lieutenant General will continue to give more evidence or shed more light on the very serious allegations that he's making, that not only implicates some individuals that are already facing charges, but of course implicates the now suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, and he does so this time under oath. Of course, the threshold is much higher, and that he will have to substantiate the evidence that he has put before the Commission today. It's not just going to be utterances before a media briefing. We expect that more witnesses, we don't know whether it will be public or not, will be tabled before this Commission to corroborate that particular evidence with respect to the now suspended Police Minister, his intentions or his motive behind suspending or disbanding rather that political killings task team. We'll continue to give you these live updates of the Madlanga Commission as Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi is expected to be on the stand for quite a number of days, completing his version of events regarding these allegations of criminality within SAPS and organized crime syndicates in the country.
Kenny, thank you so much for that. Of course, Kenny Maphanga, just giving us a sense of what transpired on day one. Let's continue then our discussion with Reitumetse Phiri, who is a legal expert, just joining us to unpack some of those key information that we're hearing from General Mkhwanazi. Reitumetse, I want to just touch on what Kenny spoke about in terms of substantiating this evidence. General Mkhwanazi touched on the fact that right at the beginning that the justice system is at risk of total collapse if the issues he raised are not addressed. In fact, in his opening address, Justice Madlanga too warned that, if Mkhwanazi's allegations are proven, in fact, to be true, it would spell doom for the rule of law in South Africa. Legally speaking, what does that mean for South Africa if these allegations are substantiated? And what's the work cut out for General Mkhwanazi in these coming days to make sure that indeed he does have proof?
And yeah, I think the substantiation will happen in a number of ways. Firstly, he's obviously giving his evidence under oath, which means this time it's not just utterances. Secondly, there'll be references to emails or text messages, which will be then read into the record as the testimony unfolds. And thirdly, there will be other witnesses that will then be called to corroborate and who will also furnish statements under oath together with other evidence. So I guess by the end of the inquiry, or at least the testimony period, we would then have a full picture from the various sources. So it's not only General Mkhwanazi that has to provide all the evidence to substantiate what is happening at the SAPS. There will be other witnesses as well, including the testimony that will come, for instance, from someone like Minister Senzo Mchunu, right? So the corroboration will happen in that frame, and the Commission will then assess. And I like what they said in the morning, that they're approaching everything with an open mind to then evaluate what is more probable given the evidence that it would have heard over the period in time.
And I want to speak about that because I think that you spoke essentially about phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2, that's when those that are implicated by Mkhwanazi will then, come to the commission to also just give their versions of the truth. Just speaking about the 3 phases, I mean, let's talk about the importance of the structure, especially when you look at phase 3, for instance, where we understand that witnesses, including Mkhwanazi, may be recalled to reconcile any contradictions. I mean, how significant is that in ensuring that the final reports stands up legally?
I think the structure that is being utilized, it basically follows what would be in a court process, where you'd have, call it the complainant or the applicant, set out his case, and then the defendant or the respondent would then reply or answer, and then the complainant would then reply again. And it's a tried and tested way for assessing the veracity of allegations, in the sense that if there's any clarification that's then needed, it can be addressed, and that would then address issues of if General Mkhwanazi wasn't so truthful, or something needed to be put to him that contradicted what his testimony would have been in phase 1, then it can be dealt with in phase 3. So it's an important process which is tried and tested as a means of essentially coming to the truth or an assessment of what probably happened. So I like the process that the Commission has actually undertaken in this respect, and I think it's probably most suitable for the type of work they have to do.
I mean, I don't want to jump straight ahead, but how difficult a task will it be for the suspended police minister, Senzo Mchunu, or well, at least, just put on some form of leave? I mean, Mkhwanazi said that the PKTT, that's the Political Killings Task Team, was formed by the Interministerial Committee. And he said that the minister may not necessarily have had the power to disband the unit without consulting the Justice, Defence and State Security Ministers first. So we just heard now that the Commission requesting that the Interministerial Committee minutes could be declassified to be placed before it. I mean, how significant is this?
That's very significant, because it goes right to the powers of the minister and the way that the criminal justice structure operates, as detailed by General Mkhwanazi earlier as well, to say that the minister really only deals with policy and operational issues are then dealt with by the National Commissioner. So if you think of actually as well the way that Political Killings Task Team came about, it creates problems if it was established by the president and it became an interministerial, it was the work of an interministerial committee, for then one minister who hasn't consulted with that interministerial committee, and secondly does not, from the face of it, have the powers under the constitutional framework, it does create problems for Minister Mchunu. So it will be interesting to see how he understands his role, or at least the role of the police minister within the constitutional framework. I think he'll have something to say about that. And it will also be interesting for how he deals with how he would then have been able, without having basically consulted back with the interministerial committee or the president, to have then found the powers to disband that Political Killings Task Team. So that will, I suspect, will be quite a difficult area of testimony that we'll receive from Minister Mchunu.
All right, so thank you so much, Reitumetse, for your time. Really do appreciate it. Reitumetse Phiri is a legal analyst, just giving us and weighing in on day 1 of the highly anticipated, in fact, Madlanga Commission, which began at 10 a.m. this morning. It will commence tomorrow at the Brigitte Mabandla Justice College in Pretoria.